Digital marketing in 2026. My goodness, it is just such a robust area of conversation, especially with AI creeping in on everything that we do in our world. Our guest today, Borja Cuan, is co-founder of Four15 Digital. And Borja, your company specializes in world-class digital marketing with your clients where they get results and they have an amazing client experience, correct?
Correct.
All right. Can you jump in on this? Because I know that your industry is one that's being impacted with everything happening right now. Tell us more about Four15 Digital. I know you've been in business for decades, but tell us more about what we need to know and what sets you apart.
Yeah. So I have been in digital marketing for 27 years. I started in the industry back in 1998, right out of college, working for an internet startup based in Boston, Massachusetts, and ended up working there for 8 years. And after leaving that company, I continued in the industry, working for a few more companies before I decided to start my own agency. So the agency that I co-founded, Four15 Digital, is now 9 years of age. And yes, you explained it well. We are in, we're essentially helping businesses scale through digital marketing, i.e. Google, Meta, LinkedIn, Pinterest, TikTok. And we work with a variety of businesses in terms of category, in terms of stage, in terms of size, you name it. We don't have a specialization in terms of vertical. Instead, we consider ourselves to be very good at media buying and performance creative. And I think what sets us apart is really, I would say, the amount of attention and effort we really put into the engagements with our clients, being boutique in size, not in terms of how much media we manage, because we manage about $400 million a year in ad spend. So it's not an insignificant number.
It's considerable.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
it's meaningful for sure.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think, a lot for us has to do with, the approach we take with managing these clients. We have a lot of operational discipline and infrastructure that and systems that we have in place at the agency that allow us to do what we need to do to make these businesses successful. So I think that's probably a point of differentiation in terms of how we deliver the service and a lot of the, like I said, systems and processes we follow as a team to be able to do what we do.
Well, I think that sounds fascinating. And I know that it sounds as if you really customize on all facets. So you're not necessarily one niche or one area. You just have incredible services that you then customize depending on the size, scale, and type of client that you get.
Exactly. Yeah. It's, you can't sort of have a copy and paste approach or one size fits all approach in the business that we're in, because even though there's some things that apply to all the businesses, there's quite a bit that needs to be custom based on the nuances of that business, also based on the goals and objectives of that business, also based on the budget we're managing, the number of products. There's a lot of variables that factor into us being able to sort of customize our strategy for that specific business. So yeah, I mean, I think our approach is really understanding the client. What are the problems they're looking to solve? What are the goals that they have for that business? And in most cases, the businesses that we work with are all trying to grow in terms of revenue. So that is pretty much the constant. And so we know we have to help businesses grow. We can't take on a business and be flat or reduce revenue, because that would reflect poorly on us and likely end our engagement with that client. So really, it's a very I'm not looking for sympathy by making this statement by any means, but yeah, we're in a tough business in that it's performance based. So no matter how much a client likes me, spending time with me, no matter how strong my relationship is with that client, if I don't deliver performance, unfortunately, I will likely not retain them as a client. The good news is if I have a good relationship with them, I might get a second chance. So that's why it's important to always have a good relationship with your clients, because that gives you some room for error, if you will. So I think in general, though, this is our North Star.
So it's really interesting to me when I think about your industry and digital marketing from 1998 until now. Which little side note, that's the year I got into real estate. So you and I have a similar time span, right, in our chosen industry and area of expertise. digital marketing in 98, looking at where that has come, I mean, you've seen all of it. You were there really at the beginning.
Yep.
Some would
Yeah.
get very close to the beginning, right? And you have been with it through all of its incarnations.
Yeah, it's
How does
true. I
that
mean,
impact what you do every day? Because now you've got that perspective and that knowledge base that cannot be absorbed from a book. So does that really have an impact on your clients with you having that length of time in the industry?
I think it does build some credibility when you have a
Right.
resume and you can say, hey, I've been doing this for 27 years. It also depends on what you've done in those 27 years as to
Right.
whether or not you earn that credibility and trust from people. But yes, it does, I would say, help me in what I'm doing now, mostly because of the accumulation of experience that I've gained
Right.
in those 27 years and the exposure I've had working with different leaders, working with different clients. It's helped me be a better leader, better manager for my own business. Working with different clients has allowed me to work with my agency clients as well and taking a lot of what I've learned, even though I'm not doing account management work now. I'm still involved with clients and I'm still training and developing the team. So a lot of what I've learned over the years, having been in that position as an account manager, I'm able to help train and develop my team.
Your team, that's
Having,
right.
yeah, right. So
And you
it's
give
like,
them that confidence.
yeah, I give them that confidence. I'm able to coach and mentor them when they have questions or when they run into a wall. They can come to me and say, well, how would you deal with this? Or how do you work through a difficult customer situation? Or how do you push back against a customer, say no to a customer? How do you enforce scope creep, which is very common in our industry, right? We define a scope of work with a client.
Yes.
That client ends up asking for a lot more
A
than
little
what's been
more,
agreed
yeah.
to, you
"Oh,
know?
could you just do one little favor?" And that turns into 5 miles of favor.
Exactly. And you want to do well by your clients. You want to do
Right.
more than what they were asking you to do. You always want to go above and beyond, right? But there is a balance, right? Where it could be too much, right? Excessive demand. And so on the team side, a lot of my experience having worked for managers and leaders that I've liked and disliked has helped me become a better leader because I've learned a lot through them, the good and the bad. And then from a sort of client standpoint, having been in a client facing role, it's helped me be good with clients and understand what client services means and good account management and things like that. And I also had a lot of experience having worked in the hospitality industry. And
Mhm.
that was also beneficial to me, even though in an unrelated space, not digital marketing, it was still working with humans, working with clients, and providing customer service and great experiences. So even some of my experience having worked at hotels really translated into kind of the agency world
Right.
in a way that maybe you wouldn't think would, but it does.
In your current role, you as co-founder, and one of the leaders of the company, is your co-founder also still actively hands-on in the day-to-day?
Yeah, so he is I would describe our roles as non-redundant, which is good. If you
Mhm.
start a company and you identify a partner, ideally that partner does not share the same skill sets you do. Instead, they are complementary to one another. That
That's right.
makes a good match or a good combination, in my opinion. So he and I have opposing skill sets. I manage and oversee the operations of the business. That includes sales. He oversees the client services practice and from a technical standpoint. So he's the practitioner. He's been the one in the ad platforms. He knows how to use them, very technical. So he's the one that's ensuring that our team is trained and developed and really understanding how to use the platforms that we're buying on every day. So he still actually is very involved with client work, maybe too much for my liking. And it's been a bit of a friction point, to be frank with you, where I still think he's too in the weeds and he needs to operate
Mhm.
now more as a founder. But besides, that's not the point here. The point is, yeah, we both have sort of our hands and a pulse on the clients. Even though we're founders and we do other things that are more strategic and important for the business, you can't ever lose sight of your clients, or at least the most important clients. You don't want to go too far from that because then you kind of lose touch with what's going on in the business.
Right, and not only do you run that risk, but your company that the two of you have founded can start to lose a little bit of their vision or your voice. So you're walking that tightrope of being involved enough that you're still having that impact on the experience and then having that bigger vision so the company can continue to grow.
Exactly.
So it
Yeah.
sounds like the two of you are doing that really well, coming up on 10 years of working together and having growth in those 10 years. I think that's an accomplishment that not a lot of businesses reach. So how did the two of you as co-founders, how do you keep that relationship and communication strong and growing?
It's hard, actually. So, no different than a marriage in your personal life, going and getting married to someone in a business environment is equally as hard, right? So, a lot of the
Mhm.
ways you're successful in your personal marriage apply to being successful in a business marriage. It's not that
Right.
different, frankly. And it hasn't always been easy. In fact, even to this day, it's not easy. We have moments where there's friction or conflict, and I think that's healthy and normal. Obviously,
Mhm.
you want to try to avoid a lot of that and that being a
Right.
common thing. But from time to time, I think when you're pushing each other and you have different POVs on things, you're going to have occasional conflict and not agree on things. I think what we have done that has helped us is start by being very clear with job descriptions and roles and
Yes.
responsibilities. So when you do that, and I even do this in my marriage, which I think is very important, it sounds very rigid, that actually rigid equals sometimes good outcomes. Like I know it sounds rigid, but
Agreed.
we have job descriptions in our life, right? Like he does this, I do this. What are the things
Right.
that I am responsible for and am the owner of? And what are the
Right.
things that you're responsible and the owner of? They're both equally important. They just say different things. So it's not one is greater than the other or one carries more weight or is more important than the other. It's just let's define what those are for each of us. And then let's do a really good job on each of these things and let's hold ourselves accountable to these things. And that
Right.
has helped a lot in terms of defining that and saying, okay, this is my responsibility. This is your responsibility. If there's any gray area, well, we'll say, well, maybe both of us need to discuss this because it's not really, it's on me or you. It's kind of like in the middle. So on these things, we kind of come together and we have a conversation to see what makes the most sense for the business.
I mean, the way that you describe that dynamic and the ebb and flow of, especially with a task or an area that overlaps, is really spot on. And one of the mantras from one of my earliest and longest coaches, he would say, clarity is power, which I am pretty sure he was quoting someone, and I don't know who he was quoting. But when
Mm-hmm.
you talk about having that clear job description and this is going to be mine and I'm going to own it, I'm going to take responsibility. I will report. You're going to see it in action and I'm going to be on top of it. And they have theirs. That brings so much power and so much ease in communication. So I think it does reduce the friction long term.
Yeah, 100%. And I think communication also, good communication, not communication. Communication in itself is not good or bad. I think good communication or effective communication is also really important when you have a partnership, right? Again,
Hmm.
applies in your personal life. If you're bad in communication in your marriage, I promise you will be a problem. It would not be a very smooth marriage if you're bad at communicating with each
Right.
other. It's no different in business. We're just two things that are pretty much the same. If we do a good job of communicating with each other, it will likely prosper. If we do a bad job, it will not prosper, right?
It will
Seems
not.
like a common sense thing, right?
It would seem as a common sense thing. And yet, that is one of the biggest obstacles that partnerships face and companies face, even when it's a solo person, if they have a board. Yeah. So I think that is probably led to your enjoyment and success as a founder and as a leader.
Yeah, I think I've been not always very good. I mean, you get better and better at these things. There are levels to the game, right? In terms of what I'm talking about. But I have many years ago, I identified this as a very important skill set, the ability to
Hmm.
communicate, right? And I think it's actually to me the most important skill set more than any hard skill. Like soft skills to me are more important than hard skills. I
Right.
think it was hard skills get you the job, soft skills get you the promotion. I think that's the
Hmm.
saying. But the
Right.
point is I do think the ability to communicate effectively is really important in a in life, right? I'm
I
not going to
agree.
say in business or personal, like just in
That's right, 'cause
general,
it's all of it,
right?
right.
It's all of it, right?
Frankly, even with your own self, because we communicate with ourselves more than anyone else, right? So you're right. If you can dedicate the time to actually learn the skills, which the great news is much of this can be learned, enhanced, and built upon. So I would agree with you wholeheartedly. And that has led you to scaling this business that you're
Hmm.
co-founder of and really achieving some big success in your chosen field. I want to go back to when you made that decision to go out on your own. So you were successful working in other corporations and were what led to that desire and drive to claim that entrepreneurial, and go out and found your own company?
I think it was just right time. I mean, I had always worked at companies where I got a lot of exposure to the founders of those companies because I
Okay.
took an interest and I learned a lot from them, not only directly, but also by observation. And so I always had sort of an entrepreneurial mindset when I was an employee working for companies. I remember learning something at a very early age, which was act and think like the owner. And that includes when you leave the office or you're the last person to leave the office, turn off the lights,
Yes.
right? Like, and I had that mindset. So I think it was kind of the natural progression for me or path for me in my career. It was meeting my business partner, having things in common in terms of the vision that we had for an agency. We both had a lot of experience that we would bring. We also had a nice Rolodex of contacts that we could call upon on day one to become our first customers. So we had both sort of built up a network over our careers. And we always knew that we were both very capable people. And not that we said this to each other, but I'm sure in the back of our minds, we knew this. If it didn't work out, there was always plan B. We could always go back to doing what we were doing. Not that we really had any doubts in our mind that we wouldn't be successful. I think we knew we would be successful. We just didn't know how successful we would be, right? It wasn't a matter of, can we make an agency successful? It was a matter of, will this be, you know, how big will this get,
How big will
right?
it be?
Yeah, exactly.
When you think back to, 9 years ago and where the company is today, have you met where you thought you would be or have you exceeded where you thought you would be?
I think I didn't have, to be frank with you, an expectation. Now, my business partner's answer would be, because I know this, he told me, is not meeting expectations.
Okay.
Mine are, I think, they're like, I'm not exceeding, not meeting. It's kind of like, I didn't have an expectation, right? There are a lot of businesses that have grown a lot more than us. And there are a lot of business that have grown a lot less than us. And there are a lot of business that have gone out of business.
Yes.
So we are
Yes.
not within our peer set. People are doing much better than us. There are people that are at where we are, and there are a lot of people that are a lot, smaller than us. I kind of view it as, I think we have a good business. Do I think it can be better and bigger? Percent. Am I satisfied with where we are? I'm happy and grateful for the success we had, but I wouldn't say I'm satisfied, because
Mhm.
satisfied to me implies it's good. Like I don't need more. And I do see
Right.
a lot of opportunity and potential. So I'm very motivated and inspired to make this bigger than it is. And so, I think that's a good question. I think I would answer it differently than he would. He would probably clearly say, yeah, I thought we'd be bigger and further along. And I'd say,
Mhm.
I didn't really have an expectation. I was just like, like this is a good business.
It's a good solid business, and
Yeah.
it's still I love what you said about satisfaction. There is such a danger zone around satisfaction because it's just the flip side of complacency. So if you get up every day and just everything is enough and fine, you're not gonna scale, you're not gonna grow, you're not gonna have that little fire with your partner being like, "Wait a minute," wait, yeah, so
Yeah,
you won't keep growing. So, that satisfaction is definitely, in my opinion, a danger zone.
it is. It's like I associate that with comfort.
Yes.
But as we get older, we also realize you have to smell the flowers, and you can't sort of like, I'm not saying you have to be satisfied, but you also have to have perspective, right? Because if you constantly are like more, bigger, 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 and you lose sight of the fact that you do have a successful business and there's a lot of good things, like you don't, there's like a balance to ambition and like satisfaction. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yes,
too
I
much
do.
ambition too much ambition could be bad too. I mean,
That's right.
maybe that's because I'm not Elon Musk and and some of these other people because they just have a certain, you know, these are outliers, Steve Jobs and
That's right.
right. But in general, what I'm saying is like, you also have to remember, like, yes, it's good to be ambitious and you should be very sort of not comfortable. Comfort to me equals danger zone, right?
That's right.
If you're never uncomfortable, that's not a good thing. Like you should
No.
always find yourself in situations that put you in uncomfortable places because that's where you realize your most growth, right?
Right.
So it's just like I always want to say, it's like you just have to remember though not to be constantly at that gear because it's very taxing, right? Mentally and physically,
Yes. I
right?
think it's a key element of burnout that we see in a lot of CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders, people in leadership. If nothing is ever good enough ever, and it's always the future, and you're not just taking a moment, as you said, to like smell the roses and have a level of appreciation
Yeah.
for where you currently are and what you've done and what's still, yeah, you will, that is a recipe for, and I'm sure you've seen them. Sometimes there's a comet that shines through the sky and then disappears, right? So you come and go, or you just go for a long time without enjoyment and then have burnout. And that also usually has some kind of ending that you probably didn't foresee, that.
Exactly. And you hear this all the time from people that are successful. I mean, I don't know who said this recently, but someone said, a lot of my friends are very successful. I mean, billionaires in some case, yet they're the unhappiest people I know. So these are
Right,
people that achieved an immense amount of success, yet they have not found happiness,
right.
which to me is like the worst thing, right? Like you
It
have
is the worst
every
thing. Yeah.
like it's like the worst combination because why wouldn't you be happy, right? And it's probably because of who knows what. But yeah, I mean, I think it's more money and more companies being sold doesn't equate to happiness or
Happiness.
satisfaction, right? Yes, you've done well, but truly does that bring you the fulfillment and happiness that you want or need? And so that's why I always say, like, good. We should always set the bar higher and higher. We want to push ourselves, challenge ourselves, but we also have to celebrate the wins along the way and
Along the
take a
way.
moment to really reflect and say, hey, wow, this is great. Are people doing better than us? Yes, there's always going to be that. But we also have to
Always.
remember, like, we've done well too, and we should celebrate that. That's not to say this is the end of the road, but I also don't want to lose sight because man, things can crash and things can go the opposite way. And then you'll be in a position where you're like, God, I wish I was just where I was when I was not happy, you know?
Yes, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. So when you look at your company now, give us an idea of the size of it in terms of like employees. What's the size of the team and
Yeah.
the
So
company?
we have 22 employees full time, managing about 400. This year will be about 400 million in spend. So it's a tight firm, lot of media under management. And that's kind of one of the metrics that we look at is how much media we managing for clients. And we do that with 22 employees. So it's, we don't take a lot of clients. Our firm is pretty selective with the businesses that we work with, so we don't have that many clients. But
Hmm.
we try to align with clients who we believe we can impact greatly, but
Right.
also we believe we're sort of on the same page in terms of where the direction we want to take their business. So, and all our business has been referral based. So
Hmm.
it's inbound. We don't have we're starting to develop an outbound strategy for our business to create more predictable pipeline in terms of sales, but really all of our business has been through referrals. So we're getting one or two deals a month to look at versus a lot of other agencies that have low retention rates and it's a very kind of turn and burn model.
Yes.
We keep our clients for 3 years. And in this space, on average, that is, in this space, that's actually a long time.
Yes. That is a long time.
Yeah.
With the team, how important is the culture and the environment of working together and being part of 415 Digital?
It's so important. I think, especially today, 2026, I think the job market has changed and you've seen this and you've read about this or heard this. But yeah, I think what people want today is different than what maybe they wanted when I started, when I was
Right.
right out of college, 27 years ago. When I went to my first job, it was every day in the office and no
Mhm.
one ever worked from home. There wasn't even the concept of working from home. If you didn't go into the office, you didn't work probably. And so we were always together. I was learning a lot by way of listening. I was in a cubicle and I would overhear salespeople and I would overhear product people and I would overhear marketing people. I would learn a lot through osmosis. There was this concept of water cooler talk. That
Right.
happened. That is a true thing.
Yes, it is.
I ended up getting a lot of exposure to the executives because they were in every day and I could sort of meet them in the break room or say hi as we were passing each other. So there was this really camaraderie that was built
Mhm.
into the culture of that first company. And today it really does matter to people. I mean, they do want flexibility. A lot of employees really care about flexibility, which means having the ability to work remotely if they want. And we do allow for that. Though we're not an in-office 5 days a week organization, we definitely are not a fully remote either. We believe in hybrid as the best formula for success. So what we
Right.
do is we allow people to work from home 2 times a week and they have to be in the office 3 times a week. And when they're in the office together, just today I had lunch with one of my teammates. We'll get a coffee in the afternoon. We're having meetings in person. So it's very intentional and very collaborative.
Mhm.
And people get a lot from that. So culture environment is really important. And that only happens if you put in effort and you're intentional with it. And so what we found is that the team really likes each other. Like when we have 3 offices, but like between the offices, the team that's in each of those offices, they get along. They enjoy coming to work and seeing each other. It's almost like you're going to work and your friends are there. And that's
Right.
how I felt when I first graduated. It wasn't like job for me because I'm like, I get to go to work and see all my friends and have lunch with them and talk to them. And then we're doing work too. So I think when you create that type of environment where people not only find the work they're doing fulfilling and they're learning and they're being challenged, but also enjoying the people that they're working with, which includes obviously their manager, but like creating that type of environment where people are like spending time together in a non-work kind of setting sometimes, right?
Right.
Whether that's lunch or going for a walk or maybe going to see a movie together on the weekends, that happens. And not that we make that
Mhm.
a requirement because you don't have to hang out with your peers outside of work. But when it happens, I love it because it means people are really connecting,
That's right. Yeah, and it's a genuine connection. So
not
that's
forced.
fantastic.
Yep.
When you mentioned a little while ago that you're currently for the company exploring some outbound type of client acquisition. Could you share a little bit more about where you guys see yourself going? Like what's next for 415 Digital?
So for me, it's a lot of what I said, which is what you just brought up, which is where I'm thinking a lot about now is really building our client base. So now that we're 9 years into this, I do want to sort of grow faster. And the only way we're going to do that is by building an outbound strategy, which we didn't have previously because we were reliant on these referrals. And referrals are great, and we'll have those forever,
Mhm.
right? But there's not a lot of predictability when you have a referral-based business, right? And so I want to get to a point where I have more predictability with the pipeline. And so where I've been spending a lot of my time this year is really building out our outbound strategy. And in our business, a lot of that is not only are we doing it through email, which is a common way to kind of attract prospects into the funnel, but also through thought leadership, right? So that's a big way to kind of get your brand out there and become more of an expert in the field, right? So that is part of what we're doing. And, obviously doing it through LinkedIn and attending conferences and speaking in panels and things like that, but really establishing ourselves more as thought leaders from,
Mhm.
myself and my business partner, because I think the first 8.5 years, we were not good at sort of building out the optics for the business. We were just heads down focused on customer satisfaction, winning business, obtaining business, delighting our customers. And we did a really good job there. But we also didn't do a good job of doing a lot of PR. Like we were
Right.
very much just like, let's by doing good work for our customers, we'll get referrals. And all of that is good and we should continue to do that. But in parallel now, we're doing some more outbound, which is how do we get our sort of brand out there more, getting people to view us as thought leaders in the space, engaging with people, posting content, conferences, speaking at conferences, things like that is what we really want to be doing this year through partnerships as well, partnering with other agencies to work together and share opportunities, right? So we don't offer services that this other agency offers. And so we will pass leads to them and vice versa. They get leads for services that we offer that they'll pass on to us. So those type of partnerships can also be fruitful. So that's a lot of where I'm sort of spending my time now outside of the normal things. It's really just building out this outbound strategy and making it something that starts contributing to pipeline growth. And then beyond that, building a lot of automation tools too. Like my business partner is spending time building some tools, AI tools that allow us to sort of help our clients become more successful. And there's a lot of things in that sort of space that is not replacing us. It's more additive to the work we're doing. So it's kind of like AI plus human, not
Yes.
one or the other. And
Yes.
so we're, spending our time thinking about those things and what are those tools that we can sort of develop to be able to help our clients scale in addition to the services that we're offering. And yeah, I mean, those are the things. And, just always trying to look at ways that you can optimize the existing service offering because while we're good at what we do, we also need to always try to be sort of ahead and refine things and get better. Right? So not become complacent and say, hey, we have this recipe that works really well. It's always like looking at that recipe. Are there ingredients that we need to change to adapt to what is happening in 2026? Is there a new way of doing this? Could a tool replace this? What additional things could we be offering to help our clients that we're not offering today? Maybe that's a service, maybe that's a product. So continuing to have a mindset of, being better and offering more to our clients should put us in a position to be more successful and retain business longer because the more problems that we're solving for them or the more that they rely on us for, the harder it is for us to break apart.
Yes. And it reinforces that you guys are on the same team, you with your
Exactly.
clients. I think
Exactly.
it's interesting. So what I hear you saying is that there is vast experience and there is creativity and some proven strategies, but you all are very conscientious of staying on top of innovation. So it sounds like you have a powerful mix of there's cutting edge, you're attempting to stay ahead, along with the relationships and the proven customized techniques.
Yeah. And you always have to you can't be stubborn with this. You have to have an open mind. You have to be willing to change and adapt and try new things. A lot of what we do is experimentation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's not a mindset I have is we're the best and we can improve, right? We have a growth mindset because that's what we hire on. We don't want fixed mindset of our staff. So why would we be that way? So it's kind of always having an open mindset. It's always, learning to do things differently if the opportunity presents itself. It's getting exposure because of our Google and Meta relationships. We get a lot of kind of exposure to things that we can test or beta for our clients before it hits the market. A lot of that, keeps us sharp and also on the cutting edge, right? You don't want to be one of these people that's always like,
3 years
just
behind.
3 years behind, right? It's like you want to be like a lot of people are clinging on to these things like AI, right? And they're like, if you're an agency that doesn't talk about AI, we're concerned, right? Because everything is AI. Just put AI in front of it and someone's interested in investing in it. So that's
Right.
kind of the mindset we have.
It's it has been definitely interesting in that whole dynamic. So it's looking at scaling, increasing. You want to take more people you don't know and turn them into people you know, where then you
Yeah,
can have the relationships and still expand.
exactly.
If you were speaking to someone who wants to get into digital marketing, let's say that someone is listening to you and I right now and they have a dream of getting into digital marketing, what would you recommend?
Is this a business or a
This is
college student
a
looking to
college
become a digital?
student, a young
Okay.
person that wants to get into
Yeah.
digital marketing and they want to make
Yeah.
a career. They're thinking to themselves, man, this guy sounds awesome. I want to be him in 27 years. What would you advise for that person that's looking to break into it? Either the college student, or let's say someone is in a dead end career that they want to get out of and they always wanted to do digital marketing. So what would you just say to someone who wants to break into your industry now?
Yeah. First thing I would say is you don't know if you want to break into that industry until you start learning about it more deeply, right? It's kind of
Mhm.
like I always talk people out of starting a business. I want to kind of like, why do you want to start a business? So I'd want to have them before they interview at my company in 2 months. Someone says to me today, April 1st, I want to get into digital marketing. I'm going to say to them, let me interview you in a month and a half. And over the next month and a half, I want you to do these 7 things. There's a lot of free content out there on digital marketing, and there's a lot of things you could do to put yourself in a position to really understand it more deeply and determine if it's something that you still want to be doing, right? And then when you and I meet, I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to say, what have you done the last month and a half to show me that you really want to get into this career, right? The worst thing you could do is show up for an interview and say, I'm really interested in learning about digital marketing. And the first question I'm going to ask you on that interview, and this happens all the time, is what have you done that will show me that what you're saying is true? It's actions and behavior matching. Many times, and I'm always frustrated when I get this answer, and I do tell people and I give them feedback so they learn, so it's worth their time. They say nothing. So I say, why would you come into an interview for a position like this? I didn't need you to have experience because you're right out of college, but there is nothing stopping you from skipping that party on Saturday and going on YouTube or going to Coursera or maybe spending $10 of your own money instead of going to Starbucks on a course, an introduction to digital marketing, or getting your certification on all the Google products. It's free. You can do
Right.
this. There's so much information. And had you come to me in this interview and said, I did these 4 things and this is what I learned, I would have given you the job. But when you come to me and say you're interested in something that didn't do anything that shows me by way of action that you are really interested, I'm not connecting the dot. I think like people, it's kind of like it sounds interesting, but you really haven't even done anything to see if it's interesting or that it keeps your interest. So the advice would be spend the next 3-4 weeks and do all these things, right? And I would give them, find someone who's an expert in the industry, follow them, sign up for their newsletter, buy a book, go to Coursera. There's so much info on Coursera on digital marketing and AI.
Right.
You could learn so much, right? Go to YouTube. There's free content on digital marketing. There's so much out there that you can just take the initiative to learn so that when you come to this interview, you can ask some thoughtful questions and you can actually show me what you've done to get a head start to build a foundation. That's what I would say to them.
When you bring that up, it conveys so much more because it shows someone who is resourceful, dedicated, has some drive, has the ability to put themselves into action. Whereas the person, I'm not saying this is a label they have forever, but in that moment, showing up for an interview and their answer is nothing. To me, that is an employee that would just want to be told what to do and then do it, not necessarily resourceful. Again, I'm not saying that they would be that way forever. Their interview with you and how great that you're giving them the feedback. You probably have been a changing point for a lot of young professionals as long as they were willing to hear what you had to say. And they probably were like, oh,
100%.
he's right. Wait, hold on a minute. How am I showing up? And hopefully they're letting their true talent rise to the top after that. You did mention that there are free certifications you can get within Google itself.
Yeah.
Could you just share a little bit more about that? I've heard and have some familiarity with it, but in case anyone listening is not, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the Google ad stack. So Google has various advertising products, right? So most people know Google search, right? That's mainly how they generate all their billions of dollars in revenue. It's search advertising, but they also have other products within the Google ad stack, which are it's search, it's display, it's shopping, it's YouTube. So you can get certified in all of their products, the Google suite of products, and then you get a certificate and it has your name and it says, and it lasts, I think, a year, and it says you have been certified. You've gone through the classwork and you've done the test, and the test, I think, is open book. So really anybody will pass it. And then you have these certifications in Google. You can do Google Analytics as well. And I always say, like, for someone who's in their early one thing I know is you have time. You're not married. You don't have children. You have very to little responsibility, and there's no excuse. There is no excuse. So when you say that you're interested in something, the best thing you can do is don't say it, just show it, right? Just Show me by way of storytelling and what you've done, and I will know you're interested because your actions will speak louder than your words. There's just so many little things you could do by putting in 3-4 hours a week, and it builds up a nice kind of foundational understanding of the subject matter, right? And it's not really high effort stuff. I mean, this is stuff
Right.
that, you can do very easily and very inexpensively, if not for free.
Be an
Yeah.
investment of time,
Yeah. And I coach
time, and energy.
a lot of young people on interviewing. I think that in itself, there's a lot of demand for people needing help in coaching for interviews. And I've had people come to me and say, I don't do a good job of talking about myself or, you know, what I always tell people, and even once they're in my company, I go, you have to brag. An interview is not the right time to be humble. It's actually a
Right.
bad idea. Don't be humble in an interview, brag. And
Right.
and when you're at a company, you should not be humble. This is a race. This is a competition. You should bring to surface all the great things you're doing, because I never think of someone as bragging if they give themselves kudos. In fact, we created a kudos channel where I say, I'm most happy when someone gives themselves kudos.
Nice.
I never see it as you're bragging. I see it as you're elevating something, like you're bringing it to surface or that we wouldn't know. And I go, good job. I didn't know you did this great thing. I'm so happy you told me. But a lot of people have a hard time saying, oh, it's like talking about myself, and maybe people will think I'm trying to look better than them. And I'm like, this is where you're going to have a problem in life, when you start letting your mind take you to places that it shouldn't, right?
Right. That's right.
Don't think about it. Just do it.
Right. Well, I think that's incredible. So you're doing that with the people that you work with, but you're also doing that outside of work.
Yeah. I've done
Nice.
that for people early in their careers. And then, I do
hmm
some mentorship and coaching. And yeah, it's kind of, it's amazing how much I've been asked that question, or I'm interviewing at this company and, and I have no experience. How do I show them that that I'm someone that would be good? And I'm like, well, you don't have experience, and that's not your fault. How could you have experience? You're 21.
Right.
Right. But because of that, you have to draw upon your upbringing. Maybe your upbringing shaped and formed who you are. For me, it was, I grew up lower middle class, both hardworking parents who immigrated from here at an early age. We were working, right? Soon as we could, we were working 2 jobs, you
Right.
know? I opened a health club at 5 a.m. I closed it at 2. I went to the restaurant at 3 and worked till 9. But like, those are things that people want to hear. It says a lot
They
about
do.
you, right?
They do. Yes. And it also makes you relatable
Exactly.
because, as you know, everyone has a story. Everyone. So when you share something like that and they can relate to it, then you're going to have a stronger connection. And I don't mean necessarily that they're going to say, I did the same thing, but they see you as a living human. So it humanizes you and makes you relatable. So it's
100%.
being vulnerable oftentimes
It is.
to
Learning how to
stand
talk
firm.
about it. Yeah, and like learning that your story is more interesting than you might think.
Right.
Like, well, why would they care about that? Well, they care because they don't know you, and they're trying to figure out how you fit into this environment that they're
Right.
operating in, right? So they're trying to
Right.
say, is Borja, I need to learn more about what he's like to see if he's going to work here, if it's going to be a good
hmm
fit for him, right? Is he a resourceful? Is he a self-starter? Is he positive? Is
Right.
he negative? Like, what are the qualities and characteristics? And that's what I'm looking for, really, because I actually don't care if you went to college. You could have one candidate having gone to Harvard or any Ivy League school, then another candidate who didn't go to school, but the candidate that told me their 4-year story where they were absent of college that impressed me, I'd be like, that's awesome. So it's not
Right.
like, for me, it's what you do in your time. It's not where you went. It's like, what did you contribute? What impact did you make? And that's
Right.
all I'm looking for, because I want to see like how that translates into helping my company move forward.
Well, I would imagine in your industry in digital marketing, there is an element of the power of storytelling. And
Mhm.
it's very funny, even in that interview process, what you just shared, the candidate that didn't go to school, if they have a compelling story and they share it with you in a meaningful manner, I would imagine that that's also something that would have them stand apart.
Absolutely. And I always say that it used to be a requirement. You have to have a bachelor's degree in order to apply. And I removed that many years ago, because I said, you know what? I don't care if you went to college. I care more about, your upside potential and kind of your work ethic and your attitude. And so you may have done something. Maybe there's a story there. Maybe you couldn't afford it and instead you started working, but you did some interesting work. Maybe you traveled and you built home. Like, again, the right answer isn't, I didn't do anything for the 4
Right.
years and I hung out with my friends and traveled. That's not going to be enough.
Right.
Like, you had fun
Yeah.
and you hung out with your friends isn't what I'm looking for, right?
Right.
You had to
right.
have advanced yourself somehow. Read 100 books. I took these courses. I, attended these conferences. Like, there has to be something that shows me you're a student. Like, you want to learn, you want to grow, you learned a new skill, a new trade, something, right?
You and I share that desire. When I'm looking for talent for my coaching company or even with my coaching clients, it's really important that someone has a growth mindset. Like, they crave learning and they want to challenge themselves. Like I'm sure you've had times. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to find because some people learn what to say and how to say it in the moment. But
Yep.
usually you're able to discern if someone has that desire to learn and grow in the process. And that is one of the key factors that I look for as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of like when I tell people, you may not agree, I say there are such thing as stupid questions. I've been asked stupid questions before that may be unpopular, but it's true. In
Yes.
fact, I think I judge people not on the answers to questions, but in the questions they ask.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think when you go do an interview and when I say, do you have any questions? And you say no, or your only question is, what is the salary or what's work-life balance definition? You've already asked the wrong questions,
Right.
like it's just, if you got 3 questions to ask, don't make it those questions, it's not
Agreed.
thoughtful. It's very shallow. So really be like curious is what you're saying. People that are curious, that really want to know, that are willing to accept feedback and implement that feedback, not just take it, right? But that they genuinely are interested in understanding how things work and they're asking questions and they're present and you can just tell, right? You
That's
can
right.
just tell those people that really want to get better. And there's always going to be people that don't, and that's fine. Every company has them and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because if someone doesn't want to have this, super motivation and ambition, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think everybody
Right.
should choose the path that they want and that makes them happy, right? So, I just think if you are on the track of being, getting, moving up the corporate ladder and getting promotions and title changes and raises, you do have to have a different gear, right?
Yes, I absolutely agree. Well, is there anything else that is on your horizon? Do you have any other big plans? You're scaling the business,
Not
working
really. I mean,
together
that's
with
it.
your co-founder to keep everything moving and growing this culture?
Yeah, just keep working at these things and trying to get better every day as a leader, try to get better in terms of what we're doing and with our service offering. Yeah, just work hard and focus on the things that make the most impact, being very good about that, right? Not getting distracted with silliness or things that aren't needle movers. I try to be very good about that. And that's it.
Well, I really appreciate everything you have shared. And we're going to have all of your contact information wherever you're consuming this podcast. It'll be right in the description. But thank you for being our guest. And you are a thought leader in your industry. So I can tell from this conversation with you that you are definitely a thought leader in digital marketing. So thank you for being our guest today.
Thanks for having me. It was nice to speak with you.
And if you're listening to this episode, I hope you'll come back and join us again. Have a great day.